I believe in the power of storytelling. In fact, I can't express enough how important storytelling is, especially right now. In a time when so many people believe patently false things because others have created a good story around it, we need to be able to write truth into good stories, good narratives, get people to care again. Making good stories around things is not just how we can teach others, how we can influence others, it is also a way that we preserve our icons and our own legacies forever. I think because academia disproportionately values the written word, many of us have been alienated from the value of good oral storytelling traditions and the power of those traditions. And in fact, that those traditions are what allowed marginalized people, especially for those who had low and non-existent literacy levels and could not actually learn from the written word. In a time when so many people in America don't even have a 6th grade reading level, it is so much more important that we learn how to harness oral storytelling and the platforms that we have that allow us to speak to one another, to use our voices, to tell a good story. And I think of a number of content creators who have really done this well. One that I watch every single day is Coach Jackie. I really want to get invested in women's sports, but it is very overwhelming. There are so many teams, there are so many sports, there are so many rules, there are so many players. I want to care, but there's so much going on that I don't necessarily know what to care about. But every single day she has a different story about a different person in women's sports, and she goes over their life and their struggles and why we should care about them. And that's the thing, like, so many people do not even know so many things about the world, nor do they know why they should care about those things, and thus they are not going to be motivated to seek those things out. In making things entertaining and learning how to make edutainment like actually good, like not just a corporate product that is trying to be sold, but an oral storytelling method that is designed to try and teach and help others behind us know the lessons that we've come from before us, and to know who the important people are, especially the people that are so very frequently neglected by academia. And we live in a time when academia is progressively getting eaten away at more and more and more. If we don't learn, if we don't remember how to harness these storytelling traditions, like, these things truly matter. Cultural moments truly matter. Like, I think especially people that came up after me, like, they had such a valuation in STEM and how important all of these STEM subjects are, that a lot of people just don't understand why art is important, why culture is important, why storytelling is important, why the things we do together, the things that we care about, we gather around, whether it be something that seems important or not. Another good storyteller who is doing incredibly valuable work is Strange Aeons, who makes content around a lot of internet communities. There's a lot of Tumblr and Something Awful content especially. That tends to be her forte. And I understand this urge to be like, I mean, no, that's just Tumblr. But like, Tumblr in the era 10 years ago is a cultural phenomenon that I got to live through, that so many younger people either didn't get to live through or didn't get to live through while they had like a fully functioning adult brain in their skull case to process everything or to recollect everything, to really understand the dynamics of what is going on. But so very frequently these online communities are larger and have more financial power than even small cities and things of that nature. So the culture that takes place though is just as valuable, just important. It needs remembering just as much. Having storytellers who not only kind of lived through those times and can speak about their own first person like perspective of the time, but also can really do the internet archaeology the way Strange does, are also valuable to all of the people who didn't necessarily live through a lot of the things that you or I might have lived through. Documenting our cultures, our subcultures, even if they occur online, even if it seems like a niche like the fandom, or if it's just Tumblr bullcrap, or if it's AO3, or whatever it is, it still had value. It still was a cultural moment. People still learned from things like that. Fandom is so very often an avatar through which we interface with things in our real lives that we're not ready to face directly, face to face yet. Like, I wrote so much very gay fan fiction. I was writing 10,000 words of fan fiction a day when I was heavily closeted because I needed some outlet for that. And the way I did was by writing really gay fan fiction with other women who were married to men and were secretly dissatisfied in their relationships because they weren't getting any emotional validation, so we got emotional validation out of each other. Like, there's so much there that, like, I want to document, and I feel like I need to document, and I feel like so much of that was so formative for so many people, and I very frequently talk myself out of it. I think it's not important, but I realize that this is not a unique experience. So many other people like me went through experiences like that online and are probably still doing it today. There is a story to be told there. There are people that are going to care. The people that didn't necessarily live through the play-by-email and play-by-post scene of the 90s and aughties might be really curious how things like that used to work. And I think we have this idea that if content isn't like boring and like fact, and it comes from a book, that it isn't valuable. But that, again, is just academia teaching you to devalue anything that is not academia so that they can charge you a fortune for access to information, when there are any number of ways to learn things nowadays. And learning from people directly often has as much value, if not more, than academia, because it comes from the real world. Like, sure, I learned a lot of really interesting theoretical stuff when I was in college, but I also have learned a lot of stuff just from existing in the world and processing fandom and being a part of fandom and iterating on media through my own fan works and fan spaces and so many things. And like, fandom is another thing, and I'm going to do a whole video on the power of fandom, because I think fandom is one of the most important things out there. I think fandom, like, in addition to just being like a vehicle through which we interface through real world issues that we can't necessarily interface with directly with our real world personages, it is also such an important cultural phenomenon. The power of fandom is massive. When a fandom gets nasty and gets turned against people, it can, yes, be really damaging, and that is an aspect that very frequently gets focused on when we're talking about like critical or commentary content about fandom. So very few people actually talk about, like, so many people use fandom when they're in a real bad space in their real world and they need an escape. So many people use fandom for social connections, for community, for culture, like so many things in so many people's lives. And like, yes, I understand that most fandom productions are corporate owned IPs and like there's the capitalism of it all, but everything is tinged by capitalism. I get that. We can't just dismiss culture and say that it's not valuable because it very often is coming from capitalism. And I think why fandom is such an interesting thing, because fandom so very often sees the holes in a lot of work and says, I want to fix that. There's no gay people, I want to fix that. I think that the author shouldn't have killed off this character, I want to fix that. And I think that's why the Hogwarts fandom is so hard to quit, because it is deeply, deeply, incredibly flawed work, and so many people took a look at that and were like, I mean, there's good material here, but I don't really like what you've used it to make, so let me just reassemble things into something that's better, and then I'll play in that world. And the thing is it's easier to get people invested in something when you say it's an alternate universe of a known fandom, because they have that buy-in of it being an existing fandom. We're so dismissive of fan fiction when in reality the large majority of works made today are Bible fan fiction or Shakespeare fan fiction, because it's just, what about Romeo and Juliet in modern day? What about the hero's journey in modern day? Like, so much of this is just iterating upon iterating upon iterating, and because fan fiction is very often something that women and queer people do and other marginalized people do, they don't want to take it too seriously because they don't want us to get too big for our britches. But simultaneously, there have been tons of movies and things like that that have been made from fandom. So I think fandom as a branch of storytelling is particularly powerful because the way fans use it to like plug holes in the existing canon and make a resulting work that is stronger and make friends while doing so, and have people comment on their art and give them feedback on their art who wouldn't care about it if it was something unique that they had made. I want to talk about a couple of other content creators that I really like. First off, Cydnee Black. I was not necessarily sure if I was going to include her at first because she has been on a kind of extended break from like making that type of content, but I loved her makeup and history videos. And I know some people don't always agree with like doing makeup while you're talking about like these things that happen. And I think with true crime, especially true crime where the families of the people that were involved are still alive, I can see an argument there. But I also think that, like I was saying earlier about edutainment, about making good edutainment, about making something that is simultaneously entertaining and keeps that side of our brain interested, but also is giving facts and history and implications and things of that nature so that your brain wants to have that content. Like, so much academic content is so very dry, and it makes it very hard for a lot of people to focus on it, and that stings. But one of the strengths of social media, and one of the strengths specifically with video, is the ability to tell each other stories in a way that is interesting, in a way that is evocative, in a way that is less dry and that our brains want to engage with, so we're not like struggling our way through it. That is the big reason why I use like Taylor Swift and Taylor Swift's work and gossip about her life as a vessel to teach media literacy with a lot of my content. I recognize that people are going to come for one sort of thing, and that side of their brain is going to be engaged by the kind of like drama kind of side of things and the artistry side of things, while simultaneously I can also teach lessons about how women's art isn't taken seriously, about how Taylor's art isn't taken seriously, how many layers, like so many things, because I have the whole of somebody, their entire brain. Like, I know that the whole like left brain, right brain thing isn't necessarily really a thing, but I do know that like if different parts of your sensory system are engaged by something at the same time, and if more of your brain is devoted to it, if there are multiple elements, it makes your brain resonate with it more. I know that when we are emotional, we are more receptive to different types of information, which is probably why they want kids stressed at school, because then they're going to take the brainwashing from the education system a lot better. Finally, because I don't want this video to get too long, I want to talk about Noni Solfeggio, who does a little bit different. It's not as serious. A lot of the things that she teaches are more like, isn't it weird type things, but she writes these weird little songs that they're like, you know when you can tell somebody's really good at something but they're trying to do it deliberately bad for like humor? Yeah, the songs are like that, and she just talks about random things, random weird historical events.
The dolphins are stressed out. They're in the ocean getting lit off pufferfish. Hollywood was created, so you said Thomas Edison. Thomas Lightbulb Edison. Imagine walking through the city and a thick gelatinous substance grabs your ankles and takes you away. My life was blood.
And my brain just processes it as silly little fun content, but also there are things that I have learned, especially animal content. A lot of her animal videos have been really interesting. And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently is the fact that like when you analyze art, you are putting yourself into the analysis. Like you can tell a lot about somebody by how they analyze art, by how they receive the art, by how they take the person seriously, especially if the person is a woman or somebody else marginalized. If it's do they take the person seriously when they're complaining? Do they make fun of them? You can tell a lot about a person by how they analyze art, whether they're trying to put themselves into the content or not. And I think that there's this interesting parallel about how both the artist and the fan have value, because art just being thrown out into a void that doesn't have any fans and no one cares about and no one perceives it. Half the reason art becomes interesting, like the Mona Lisa is not interesting because it's a technically impressive painting. Like that's not the thing about it. It's its story. The Hope Diamond, it's the story. So many things we care about and we have been taught to value, we care about because we know the stories about them and we value the stories about them. On the same token, when we talk about things like Woodstock, yes, the performances are one part of it, but the fans and how the fans were reacting and what the fans were doing, all of that is part of the energy, is part of what the overall history of the event was and is. Now that there's a resurgence of interest in emo music, there are a lot of younger fans who are coming to us, fans who were alive during the time, and are like, tell us the stories of old, and especially like the concert stories and how we reacted and what we thought and what we felt when these different bands were doing these different things. Especially one of the things that I've been talking about a lot recently is Andrew McMahon and him starting Jack's Mannequin and finding out he had cancer, and that album seemingly being prophetic about that fact. And so many, it's such a fascinating album with a fascinating story to be told and to be cared about. And the fans are an integral part of that. Like, I very much think that there are a lot of people who want to devalue pop media, pop music, the fans, especially fandoms that are heavily female, because they are very scared of the power of a lot of women working together and a lot of marginalized people working together. But all of that is so intensely valuable. Like, we are living through this crazy musical moment where there are half dozen artists right now that are on tours that we are going to be caring about in decades, that we're going to be talking about in decades. People want contemporary opinions of this. They want to know what the fans of the time think and felt and all of that nature. And it's never been more important, in my opinion, to preserve that. Like, I get this belief that, oh, well, you got your camera out of the concert, yada, 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 but like, so much of the overall moment and the vibe of the concerts and the fans and how they react and all that jazz is being captured by that. And that's stuff that's going to be valuable to the story as well. No one cares about art that no one cares about. In 400 years, they will be talking about Taylor Swift the same way we talk about Shakespeare now. The best artists truly are storytellers and know how to make their art tell a story. That's one of the reasons Taylor Swift's work resounds with so many different fans out there. And I love how Taylor's work is consistently hearkening back to all of these old showgirls and it girls and actresses and singers of old. She really references so many figures, and that gets people today looking into those people. Who is Rebecca Harkness? What did she care about? Who is Elizabeth Taylor? Who did she care about? Like, so many people are investigating things they wouldn't have otherwise investigated because Taylor has wrapped it into her narrative. She's made it part of her story as well. And in a time when so many people are fighting to erase so many of us, that's never been more important. Hi, my name is AerinMoriarty. I do content about pop media and pop culture, especially Taylor Swift. I do a lot of analysis from the lens that she is her own muse, and a lot of her work is about her and her career and things of that nature. I kind of ignore the prevailing narrative that most of her songs are about men. That's not terribly interesting to me, and I think that's a very minimalizing way of looking at her work. In addition to that, I also talk about being a late-in-life lesbian, having ADHD and EDS, things along that line. So if any of that is interesting to you and you'd like to know my story, please do be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as I am still a fairly small channel. Thank you for watching to the end. It really does help a lot. Maybe one of these videos is something that you would enjoy. Check it out.